Okay, hey guys, so in this part of our tutorial series I'm going to show you how you can set up your front-end part of the project, and I'm going to use Angular 2+. I'm going also to use this Angular CLI, so if you haven't installed it, just please follow this instruction here to install your Angular CLI globally, and after that we are able to start our new project. For this purpose I'm going to go to my folder when I want to create my project, open the CMD and write ng new, and after that the name of my project will be stored. After a while you will see that Angular generated your project, but first it's going to ask you if you want to include an Angular routing. I want, so I'm going to say yes. After that I'm going, for simplicity, choose just the CSS, and we're going to wait. So when it's done, you will notice here that we have a new folder which is store, and if we enter there you will notice that here we have our Angular project. So let me open this in my Visual Studio Code. I believe it was here, and boot projects, front-end, store. Okay, I want to open all of this. So we have brand new Angular project right now, and we have to start building our application. So for this purpose I'm going to up, and here I have to create a new component which will be responsible for listing all of the books, right? So how we can do that? Let me think of it. So I'm going to use something called Bootstrap. It's very useful, and I recommend you to use Bootstrap 4. If you go there, you can see that you have option for downloading it or get started directly by just putting a link. I'm going to show you where exactly you have to put it. So in order to work, you have to put that in your index.html, because in Angular project, as you can see here, you have only one body tag and everything else is inside your body. That is why it is called SPA or a single page application, because you're returning one body and you always hook up with some components or initializing them or destroying them in some point. So right now you have to add this link here. And when you add it, you will see, but let me just start the server first of all, and just serve here, serve, okay. And I'm going to go to store, by the way, and after that change directory to scrc, and there I'm going to write ng serve. Okay, so it will start, and if it starts correctly, you will see on localhost. Okay, you will see that here here we have this hello page and everything works correctly. So right now what can we do? We can just delete all of this. Let me go to app component. So I'm going to remove all of the HTML and I'm going to say hello. When you save this, you will see here that we have our Bootstrap and our page. So what is giving us Bootstrap? It is very useful when you want to make CSS grid, because Bootstrap gives you the opportunity to use its classes, which are called row and columns. And I'm going to show you how you can divide your browser into 12 columns or less. I'm going to show you that, but first of all we need to create this component. But for this purpose I want to see what is the best thing I can display my my books. So I'm going to go to components, and here you will find a bunch of things that you can use directly. So let's say that we want to display our books like table, and here you will see that we have a solution for this table. So I'm going just to copy that, but first I'm going to create a component. So I will go here in src apps, and here I want to say, okay, let me create ngc stands from create, ngg stands from create, c component, and after that we have to write, let's say, books component. I don't know. Okay, so when it is created, you have to go to this folder and it's HTML and paste this here. But because of the nature of the Angular, we have these directives, which are special directives with this asterisk in front of them, and we can go through all of the books, but first we need to call them. Okay, so the first thing here is to get our books. But how we can achieve that? Well, here is the thing, that you have to make a service which will be responsible for calling our backend. So here we have to generate a service. So I'm going here and say ngg. Maybe first let's create a directory, which will be, and I'm going to enter this directory, and after that I'm going to say that I want ngg as let's say book service. Okay, so it is done, but here it is a very important step that you should add this book service to the array of app model. So here, as you can see, we have providers array, and you should put this here in order to tell your Angular application that you have a new provider, and you have to import it. So I'm going to say import this book service from here services, and I want this services slash book service, not .spec, because this is for testing, so I'm going to use this. As you can see, everything's okay now, so I'm going to return to my book component, and I want to create a variable which will be books. And here is the very charming thing about Angular, because Angular is using TypeScript. Angular 2 Plus version is using TypeScript. So now we can use this power, and let's say we can make a new folder which will be called models, let's say. And here we can create a new file which will be, let's say, book.ts. And this will give me the opportunity to create an interface. And here I'm going to say that I want to export this interface called book. And here I want to specify that my book will have ID, which will be number. The title, which was string, I believe. Yeah, so string. After that, I want my author, which will be again string. And here is the interesting part, which will be the PDF. And for this, book PDF, and for this I'm going to leave it blank. I'm going to say it's going to be string, but after that we're going to remove that, and I'm going to show you how we can deal with it, because it's going to be a file or encoded string. So here I have to say that I want this to be of type book, array of books, because I'm expecting an array of books, right? So I'm going to say array of books. Cool. So I have this variable, and right now when the component is has been initialized, I want my data. So how can I achieve that? Well, I have a service which has to call my books. So in order to do that, I have to install a couple of things. So the first thing here is to install HTTP client module. If you go to Angular and write HTTP client module, you will see that here you have to add that. So if you go, you will find HTTP client module, and here you can see from where you can import that. So HTTP client module, or basically everything that ends with module, have to be important in the main module or the child modules. So here, because I don't have lazy loading and I don't have submodules, I'm going to import in my main module. So I'm going to say here I need, from this, yes, I need this HTTP client module. So HTTP client module. Okay, and I'm going to declare that in imports array. Okay, so here I need that. Okay, so I have HTTP client module, and here in my service I need to import also this HTTP client. HTTP client, again from Angular. As you can see, it's with this special symbol. So Angular common, okay, after that HTTP. Cool. So we have that. So we have to make a dependency injection here for this model. So I'm going to say that private HTTP of type HTTP client HTTP client. Sorry. Okay, and now I have the right to use it. How can I do that? Well, I go here and say get books function, which will take no parameters, but it will return an observable. So I'm going to specify that this function is returning observable of type array of type book. Okay, so when I do that, I can call this http.get, as you can see, and here I have to specify the URL. But for my best practice, I'm not going to write here the URL. For this purpose, I have this environments folder, which has environment.procs.ts and environment.ts. So I'm going to specify here that I'm going to have API URL, and here I'm going to write my main API URL, which in my case is this. Okay, so I'm going to take that, and very important, I'm going to add this slash at the end. So I'm going to have this API URL, and see the beauty of this. I can say import environments from. Here I'm going to go a little bit up, environment slash environment. I'm going to import, I'm going to import environment. I misspelled it. Okay, so here I have to define a constant which will be URL, and it will be equal to environment, as you can see, dot API URL. And right now I can specify the path like so. I can say, okay, URL, let me just say URL path. I'm going to use that URL path plus, let's say, books. Or you can just create another const here, which is books URL, and say that it is equal to this. Okay, and here you can just your books URL. It's very comfortable if you change the names after that. And here I'm not allowed to do that because the editor says to me that it cannot decide what to do with that. So I have to cast this of array of book. And right now everything's okay. So I have the service. So here I have to return to my component, and I have to call the service. But first I have to inject the service through constructor. So I'm going to say private book service of type book service, and it was important above. Okay, so I'm going to call this service this book service. Okay, dot get books. And because it is an observable, I have to subscribe to it, and it will show me the data. And I'm going to say, okay, show me the data. After that, assign this data to my variable called books equal to data. Okay, and that's the first step. So for debugging purposes, I'm going to show you in the console how we can see is that everything works correctly. And right now I'm going to save that. So here, if I go to localhost, you will see that hello is there. But that's not what I want. So the first step here, before I do the routing, I'm going to go to app component, see the selector here. It is called app books. Leave it like so, because maybe if you remove this part, you're going to have some clashes with some other packages. So leave the app like so. I'm going to say I want to go to index.html. After that, it says uproot, but instead of uproot, which is rendering this h1 tag, I want to be rendered app books. If I save that, you will see that here we have the table. And if I go to my console, we have a problem. As you can see here, we have this error which says to us that we have been blocked because of CORS. And here is the backend part where you have to go to your PyCharm and you have to go to settings and you have to allow origins. So first thing first, we need to install this package. So I'm going to say, okay, Django allow cross origin. As you can see here, we have this package called Django CORS, and here I have to install them. So I'm going to go to my server, and I'm sure that the virtual environment is activated, so I'm going to install this. After that, as you can see here, I have to say CORS header in my installed array. So if you go to settings, you will see here that I have to add this line. Okay, as you can see here, we have to add another things in our middle classes. So if you take this, you'll go to your Django and you're going to go to middlewares, and as you can see here, we have to add this middlewares configurations. And the last part will be to say that I want to allow all, which is done by getting to settings, and above I want to say that here I want to CORS origin allow all is equal to true. Okay, so if I start my server again, we have no problem with that, and we have our data. And if I say this dot books, save it and go again with it, you will see here that I have my book. So let us display these books. Okay, so the first step here is to rename the columns. So I need the ID. I'm going to display that. I'm going to display title, and the last thing will be the author. And here I want the PDF. So here I'm going to need just this, and these are unnecessary right now, because here I can say something like, as you know in Angular, ng4 is equal to let book of books, which books I have presented in my component, right? And after that, I want to say here that I want to display book.id. Here I want to display, let's copy that and say I want to display book.title. So .title. Here I want to display book.author. And here I want for now just to display download as a text. I'm going to change that later. If I say that, you will see here that I have just one book presented. And I believe that was pretty much all of our journey for set up the Angular project. In the next tutorial series, I'm going to show you how we can add reactive form. and how we can add a file and send it to our backend, and after that our backend will be able to save it to the database as a PDF file. Thank you for watching. If you find this video useful, you will know what to do, and subscribe to the channel if you want more interesting videos, and let me know if you have some issues.